right, we're back with Stephen and Patrice. And Stephen, you actually teed up this conversation very well for us in the last panel about, okay, Biden, Warren, Bernie, those are like the top three. That's where a lot of the action will be. But who else on the stage could potentially have a breakout night and really stand out and do themselves some good?
I look at Secretary Castro. This is his sort of forum. He does really well from the podium. He knows his talking points. And agree or disagree with him on policy, he delivers his message.
And home state of Texas.
Yeah.
Home state advantage.
He delivers it very, very well. Now, the foil to that is that this is not Beto's best sort of forum. He's best when he's on a table and talking to 500 people, letting the passion flow through.
And able to swear.
Right. Well, right. Yeah. And so, you know, a 60-second, 90-second hit on policy, it can create an awkward dynamic for him. So those are the two I look at to one either to beat expectations or the other to shine.
I'll play devil's advocate here. The expectations at this point are so low for Beto, and I do think that, I mean, I was a Beto skeptic before. It was cool, right? But, you know, the guy is not without some talent, and he is so underperformed in the first two debates that I think if he's, like, lively and snappy at all, the media is going to want to sort of resuscitate him.
Well, the question is, what issues can he really step out on? And do we know where he really is? I mean, is he going to try and be the really progressive candidate? Or is he going to try and be somebody who's progressive moderate? And I don't think we've gotten that sense from him. Authenticity is just not his thing unless he's cursing. And as we know, that's not going to be swearing.
I disagree
on that. I think it is a very populist message, and I think he delivers it well. I just don't think the debate format is necessarily his best forum.
I think he delivers it well to magazine writers, and I'll leave it there. But yeah, I mean, we should take a look. We have our own Hill Harris X poll, which has some pretty interesting results.
Yeah.
Going into this debate, you see Joe Biden consolidating his support there, and Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. But what nobody is talking about is that Andrew Yang is not only at 5%, but look at the people who he's beating. United States senators, former congressmen. Beto O'Rourke raised more money than any Senate candidate in history, and Andrew Yang is cleaning his clock in this poll.
I saw Andrew tweeted, I think this morning, it's all fun and games until Andrew Yang passes you in the poll.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, you should be embarrassed if you were Beto O'Rourke from this. But more seriously, going into this debate, Yang, he didn't have that strong of a performance in the first debate. In the second debate, he definitely did show up. Do you think that he'll be able to continue that success, Stephen?
No.
Really?
Listen, he definitely has some moments, and it can be very entertaining. I don't think that Mr. Yang is going to be the Democratic nominee for president in 2020. He brings an interesting perspective, and I think he'll still have his moments, but I think he has a ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, he has a ceiling, but I think the way that he has expanded the debate has been incredibly productive. And what he benefits from on the stage tonight is he is the only non-politician. So he doesn't suffer from the comparison with Marianne Williamson and being sort of cast aside as a bunch of fringe candidates. Like, this is his real primetime debut on the big stage with the main contenders. He's not even going to be on the wings. He's towards the center of the stage. This is a big moment for him, and I think he feels his style is so different from everyone else. He's the only one of them that really ever has a sense of humor up there.
Well, and I mean, we've seen him crowd surfing just this week. So
and he promised to do that at the debate.
I hope to see it.
Yeah.
That's the big thing that he plans to do.
Right.
What I also think is interesting about Yang is he is not a millennial, and he's not a baby boomer or a silent generation. He is the Gen Xer. Those are the guys who are pretty, well, some of them established Silicon Valley. He's bringing that business savvy with him. He's bringing a generation that are the homeowners, are the business developers now. They are they represent something, you know, frankly, a generation that's overlooked in politics because we as millennials get a lot of attention. So he'll be a standout. I'm also really looking for Senator Amy Klobuchar to stand out here because we haven't heard anything from her. She's been, if you watch like MasterChef or a lot of these different food competition shows, there's always somebody in the middle who coasts. They never get the specials, they never get the profiles because there's nothing really special about them. But they do just enough to stay along until they break out. So this could be her breakout moment.
I think she's going to provide a cover for Biden. I mean, there's kind of the two main centrists on the stage, really, and I think he's going to take some ideological heat from the progressives. You know, the moderators are going to tee up that dynamic big time, you know, Medicare for all, Green New Deal, where are you on this and that? And I think she'll play the role of providing some cover for Biden. The person we haven't really talked that much about is Mayor Pete, who in the first debate, people said, oh, he did good, did nothing in the polls. Second debate, oh, he did good, he did nothing in the polls. What could he do that could help him stand out and recapture some of the momentum that he had early on in this race?
Well, a lot of that I think is going to depend upon the interaction of some of those other candidates. And so finding that moment to shine sometimes presents itself when you have people who are bickering back and forth and you can take the high road. And I think that's something that would lend itself very nicely to Mayor Pete's style.
Yeah.
He kind of has that.
He's not the one going after it.
He's not. But he does. He has chimed in prior debates of, well, what unites us is, or what we can all agree on is. And so if he can find that moment where you have maybe someone on, the more conservative end of the spectrum and someone on the more liberal end of the spectrum really getting into it, and he can find that moment to say, but what we can both agree on is, and try and elevate that from leadership.
People will like him, and then they won't support him in the polls.
But I think the thing is about Mayor Pete is it's actually a very implicitly critical message of Joe Biden. He's always like, we need a new generation. A lot of these people have been doing this for a long time. I think he should actually, look, I know he's really good at the dreamy stuff, but I think a little bit of criticism against Joe Biden would come across quite well. It would cut through some of the skepticism that people have of him, and it would really reset the tone, and it would get a hell of a lot of media coverage. What do you think?
You mean coming from
Mayor Pete? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a nice setup of generational, it's time to pass the torch on. But he opens himself up to being, not able to handle issues in his own city. And when you talk about the fact that he has not been able to crack the black vote or really address issues with minorities because of the policing issues he's dealt with, he puts himself out there and suddenly the arrows come right at him, and maybe rightly so on that.
Well, and I think, frankly, I don't think the I'm young and he's old argument is all that saleable.
Yeah.
That was what
Eric
Swalwell tried to
is
do.
a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
Swalwell. Right? He's just
but still, I just don't
the
think
messenger
that.
matters.
Yeah, I do think you're right. He should go after Biden a little bit. I just don't fundamentally think that people are like, oh, let's just vote for you because you're young. You don't see that. Young people are supporting Bernie Sanders.
And they want somebody to get mad on their behalf. That's why people like Bernie.
He's not that
guy.
It's a narrow needle to thread, right?
Yeah.
To draw a distinction with the vice president who is still largely beloved by Democrats across the spectrum, and to find a way to disagree. Point to a different area and not get the umbrage of those Biden supporters.
Well, and often what happens is the person who makes the attack, they may damage that person they're going after, but they often end up damaged in the process as well.
You need a Chris Christie this time.
Right? There you go.
Said no one.
A sacrificial lamb.
A sacrificial
lamb.
I would just say with Mayor Pete, he could make that generational argument if he had the credentials to back it up, and if he had a city,
it up with some specifics.
if he could point to a city and say, hey, look at what I've been able to accomplish.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be exciting.
Thank you guys both.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
We'll have more Rising just ahead.